problem is? Your face.
Yeah, right.
Come on, wise up, man. You're too good looking. These girls go out with you and they get nervous, man. They feel dumpy. They don't want to compete. They want a guy like me. You know, a guy that's gonna make them look good.
Right, a basic Neanderthal type.
Right, you're swarthy type, a man's man, a kind of guy who's...
Losing testosterone.
Exactly.
Yes.
A young woman in today's society, she wants a little bulk in her diet.
Yeah, she wants a big guy who sweats.
Yeah, right. Best thing can happen to you, Danny, is an industrial accident.
Well, happy Monday to you. The reason I'm doing this video is kind of just a brief, hopefully brief, you know me. Sometimes when I say brief, that can mean 15 to 20 minutes, or it can mean 45 to 55 minutes. So, yeah, you can't always count on me saying brief, but I wanted to do a quick follow-up to my last video because I had quite a bit of feedback. The vast majority of it was positive, but I had a few minor disagreements and challenges on some of the things I said. Now, here's what I noticed. And I've noticed this for a long time. You would think it would be the female gender that would be real sensitive to discussions about looks, because out of the two genders, women are probably, I would argue they're probably 5 times more evaluated by their looks and almost looks alone, combination of looks and sex appeal, than the average man is. So you would think they would be the ones that get sensitive, but a lot of men, not all men, but a lot of men, for lack of a better word, get kind of sensitive when you discuss the subject. I've noticed this on my last 2.5 years on YouTube, as well as even at times when I used to do my blog talk radio show. A lot of guys don't like discussing stuff to do with their own looks or men's looks in general. Again, related to my last video, on one end, you have some men, you almost have men on both sides of the stick. I have some men who believe that women put a 0% emphasis on looks. There's some men who believe that women put a 0% emphasis on looks, that they just don't care about men's looks at all, which was one of the motivations for me doing my last video. But then on the flip side, you have men that almost...
I don't know that one.
I'm sorry. That was, you know who. I don't want to say her name because that was Alexa interrupted me. You have some some men who are just the opposite. They believe 90 to 99% of a woman's emphasis is on looks. And I would generally say both of those groups are wrong. And I've said this before, so this shouldn't be a surprise. I've said it on at least 2 or 3 other previous videos. Both extremes are generally wrong, exceptions aside. Both extremes are generally wrong. If I had to put it in terms of percentage, if you believe that women put a 0% emphasis on looks, you're definitely wrong. That's wrong. That's just flat out wrong. All women place some degree of emphasis on looks, particularly if they're planning on having sex with you. Now, again, as I said in my last video, if a woman looks at you as just purely platonic friend material, then that's when I would say looks, they don't care. But when a woman's looking at you as a casual fuck buddy, casual sexual lover, they definitely gonna put some emphasis on your looks. Right behind that would be if they look at you as long-term boyfriend / future husband material, they're gonna put some degree of emphasis on your looks. And third would probably be if you're a pay-for-play partner. Now, sometimes women, if they're like a street prostitute or a professional call girl or an upscale erotic escort, they're gonna look to make as much money as they can So they are going to significantly diminish the emphasis on a man's looks. Or even in some cases, if a woman is marrying a guy who's known in the industry as a beta male financial provider, which would be somewhat similar to the marriage equivalent to a guy being a sugar daddy, then a lot of times women will put less emphasis on a man's looks. But it's very rare when a woman's going to have 0% emphasis on a man's looks. Now, on the flip side, I wouldn't say all women put 90 to 99% of the emphasis on looks either. Some women do, particularly for like one-night stands and weekend flings. Oh yeah, there are some women who do place as much as 90 to 99% of the emphasis on the combination of a man's looks and sex appeal. Looks and sex appeal. And those two together are very important because, as I pointed out on previous videos also, sometimes a man can be good looking, but have a less than average degree of sex appeal, or vice versa. A guy can have an above average degree of sex appeal, but be considered less than average looking. The one celebrity example I've always given in that category would be, at least for younger people, they won't be able to relate to this, but a guy who, he wasn't really he was younger than me, but not that much younger than me, was the singer Bobby Brown. If there was one celebrity that a lot of women back in the day would say, I don't think he's handsome, but he's sexy, it was Bobby Brown, who used to perform with New Edition before he went solo. Yeah, I knew quite a few women that's how they would describe Bobby Brown. They would say, to me, he's not really handsome, but he's very sexy. So a lot of times being good looking and being considered sexy are not necessarily synonymous. Now, sometimes your looks can contribute to your sex appeal, but for the most part, those are two separate things. Like I've known women like that. Like there's some women I've met in my life that were really, really good looking, but they had average to less than average degree of sex appeal. Then on the flip side, I know other women who might have been on a scale from 1 to 10, might have been only a 5 or a 6. But in terms of sex appeal, they were like a 9 or a 10. So that's something to keep in mind about the interplay between looks and sex appeal. I would say along those lines is demeanor. Demeanor plays a lot into whether or not people consider you attractive and sexually appealing. Is your demeanor. You've heard me emphasize that, your demeanor. That's one of the things I work with guys when I do my one-on-one face-to-face coaching. I help guys with the weaknesses of their demeanor or their disposition. That means just the overall way you carry yourself. You carry yourself. Like I give you a case in point. I want you to look at the Amazon CEOs, the guy who takes a lot of my money for my ebooks, paperbacks, and audiobooks. He takes a big chunk of the profits from my books. And that's Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon. Now look at the picture on the left and then look at the picture on the right. Now he's generally the same person. It's not like he had plastic surgery on his nose or his eyes or his cheekbones or anything. So generally he's the same person. But in the picture on the right came after he started working out with weights and building his body up. And you can see not only is his physique different, but his demeanor, his disposition is different. And so that's a very underrated contributor to whether or not women will find you both physically attractive and sexually appealing. It's not just your looks in terms of your structure of your face, like your cheekbones, your nose, your eyes, your mouth, etc., but your demeanor and disposition. Like you can have a guy that's generally good looking, that some people would consider to be good looking, but he might have a wimpy or effeminate demeanor or disposition, which might diminish his appeal in the eyes of a lot of women. Or on the flip side, you might have a guy who's some people might say is kind of average looking, but he has such a confident, masculine demeanor and disposition that it enhances his looks. So, to those people who said, hey, Alan, what was some of the feedback I got? Alan, one of the challenges I got was, Alan, I kind of agree with you that looks are probably just as important to women as they are to us men. But when you have to agree that looks are subjective, of course they are. There's no one standard for who is good looking and who is not. Like, I actually heard a podcast host try to argue different. He basically said, he tried to argue that there's a universal standard for what's good looking and what's not. That's not 100% true. That's not 100% true. There might be some validity to that, but that's not 100% true. Yeah, a lot of what plays in looks, particularly facial looks as opposed to, looks from the neck on down. Facial looks is very subjective. Some of the factors that might factor into whether or not somebody considers you attractive could be your race, something as simple as your race. Like, most racist Caucasian women who are racist are not going to find most black men attractive. Simply because he's of a different race. Some Middle Eastern women don't find men who are not Middle Eastern attractive. Some Hispanic women don't find men who are not Latin or Hispanic attractive. So that's one contributing factor, is just simply your race. Another would be your age. That would play into me, for example, age. Like, my current girlfriend, as most people know by now, my current girlfriend is half my age. Like, I'm 56. She's 28. Now, she happens to find me very attractive, but she kind of has a thing for older men. She said ever since she was in high school, she liked older men. Men who were at least minimum 5 to 10 years older than her, if not more so. And but I've had a lot of younger women that I've flirted with over the years that look at me like, no, I would never hook up with you. You're old enough to be my dad. I've had women literally say that. They're like, you're old enough to be my dad. Because in certain cities, certain states, certain countries, age difference is not really as normalized or acceptable as it. Like, I tell you, like a city like Los Angeles, and I would probably say for the most part New York, it's very common to see older men with women who are significantly younger than them. Like, when I lived in Los Angeles, I regularly, like literally on a weekly basis, saw men with women who were at minimum 10 years younger than them and as much as 30 or 40 years younger than them. That was like common in LA. Whereas here in the Midwest where I live, even in a large city like Chicago, you don't see that as much. You don't see that as much in the Midwest. Like a city like Indianapolis, for example. I've hardly ever, when I've been in Indianapolis, seen a guy that was significantly older than his wife. Most of the couples you see, they look like they're within, I'd say, at least 5 to 7 years within each other's age range. But like, again, in LA, you'll see like a 60-year-old guy with a woman that's like 22. And it won't even turn heads because it's so normal. So age is another thing that can affect somebody's attraction to you. The way you dress. The way you dress. Like, I've seen women not notice a guy when he was in, just casual or raggedy looking clothes, but then that same guy could dress up in a suit and women will all of a sudden take notice to him. So your clothes can have an effect on women's attraction to you. Obviously, weight. Weight is big with a lot of women. That's big with a lot of women. Matter of fact, I would say that's not so subjective. That's almost more so, exceptions aside, universal. Most women like a guy who's reasonably proportioned, whose physique is reasonably proportioned. Now, here's what I found even though with weight. If a woman's in a long-term relationship with a guy, like say she's been married to a guy for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, she's not going to mind that guy being heavy. Like, I give an example would be my brother. My brother, when my brother first met his wife, he was real slender. He was real slim and lean looking. But now my brother's pretty chunky. He's pretty heavy. But it's not like my sister-in-law is like, ugh, I don't like him no more. I'm not attracted to him no more. Because she's been in a marriage with him for so long. She's been married to him for 11 years. And they dated like 2.5 years before that. So they have such a strong bond that she doesn't really care about his weight. You see what I'm saying? So you can get away with being heavy if you've been into a long-term marriage but that, at the same time, that said, you don't want to use that as an excuse to get lazy and complacent. You want to always try to look your best. You know, like right now, honestly, I'm heavier than I want to be. So I'm eating right, I'm exercising, because I'm heavier than I was just a few months ago. If you guys remember, in mid to late December of last year and even early to mid-January this year, I was very slim. I ain't gotten down to my lowest weight since 2006. I got down to as low as 207, that was my lowest weight since, since December 2006. And, but now, shoot, right now, I'm somewhere between 235 and 240. Yeah, right now, I'm somewhere between 235 and 240. So I'm about roughly 30 pounds heavier than I was just in mid to late December of last year. What else? So, yeah, that was one thing. So, yeah, looks are subjective. Like, you can show... I've seen women react to two different guys 2 different ways. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, a lot of times when I want to talk about celebrities who are considered handsome, some of the names I might throw out would be Brad Pitt or Boris Kodjoe or George Clooney. But I know a lot of women who don't find those 3 guys handsome at all. Man, like I remember one of my ex-girlfriends, we were talking about guys' looks one time, and I thought she would find Boris Kodjoe attractive. And she said, nah, Boris Kodjoe, he's not my type. You know, some women like what's known as the more pretty boy type guy. Some women like more of a more rugged type of guy, like Idris Elba. A lot of women love Idris Elba, but he's not considered like a pretty boy. He has more of a rugged type handsomeness to him that women like. Yeah, it's more of what I would call a rugged type handsomeness. And so yeah, looks are definitely subjective. It's all just like I would say with women. You know, there's some women that some guys, like friends of mine or acquaintances of mine, will say, oh man, that babe is fine. And I'll look at that same woman, I'll be like, she don't do nothing for me. Like, one thing I found about myself, honestly, and I'm sure a lot of older guys would probably co-sign with me on this, when you get older, like when I was young, I used to put a lot of emphasis just almost strictly on looks alone. But now as I'm older, man, personality plays into a woman's looks. Like, for example, a woman can be attractive, but if I can sense that she's a bitch, like a hard to get along with bitch, that immediately, for me, brings down her appeal in my eyes. So a woman can be physically drop dead gorgeous, but if I get a sense that she's like just a really hard to get along with, spoiled, argumentative, drama queen type bitch, I'm not going to really look at her as attractive. Like, I remember, I told some of my clients, I remember one time I was in bed with a woman or getting ready to go to bed with a woman, and her personality was so irritating to me that it made my erection go, literally. Her personality, her looks was the same, but her personality made my erection go, and I didn't get hard for the rest of the night. Because her personality, she had the personality of a bitch, and it's like my dick was like, I don't want to fuck her no more because she's a bitch. So you'll find that's true with a lot of women. So it goes on both ends. For a lot of men, as they get older, they tend to incorporate more elements of a woman's personality into what they find attractive and sexually appealing. And I would say the same thing with women. As women get to the age of their mid-30s and older, they start incorporating more elements into that man's personality, into what contributes to if they find that man appealing or not. So, yeah, there are some things, again, that are considered universally appealing. For women, it would be having a small waist, but either large chest, large hips and butt, or both. Some people consider that more of a universal criteria for an attractive woman. But I'm sure all of you all have seen men with women that might be 10, 15, 20, 25. Like, I know, generalizing and stereotyping, I know a lot of black men who don't like real thin women. They like women real thick. Whereas a lot of white guys, they don't like thick women. They like women almost like really, really thin. So that's really all I wanted to talk about on this video. It's just that, yes, looks are subjective, but I guess my cautionary warning would be, don't allow the fact that some women don't place that much emphasis on looks to cause you to become lazy and or complacent in respect to taking care of yourself. You want to always try to look your best in terms of your weight, your grooming, like keeping your hair, together, your personal hygiene, wearing the right clothes that enhance you and that type of thing. All right? Get it, got it, good. That's all I got for you today. And no Patreon video today, but I will be coming out with a Patreon video tomorrow, no later than Wednesday. Tomorrow, no later than Wednesday. All right. Peace.